Boston has a long tradition of caring for the environment, famously showcased in the system of parks called the Emerald Necklace. But caring for green space also helps the city withstand the effects of climate change. The city is rising to that challenge through a program known as Greenovate Boston. We'd like to welcome its outreach manager, David Corbie. Thank you very much for being with us, David.
Thank you for having me.
David, what hasn't changed is that when spring comes, it's time to clean up the city, and that means some of the urban wilds in the city of Boston. So what's Greenovate doing around that?
So we're going to host cleanups throughout the summer to actually clean up these areas, and we're really trying to get community buy-in to really take stewardship of these areas and really redevelop them so that they're accessible to the public, that they're able to host animals, and that the plant species there, the native ones, are thriving as opposed to the non-native species, which is what we're going to be removing, and then also picking up the trash and litter.
Well, one of the neighborhoods I guess you're working in is Matapan. So picture it for us. What do you expect to see there? And where's the location, too?
So it's at 3 Gladeside Terrace, which is Gladeside Urban Wild. And it's a very large area. I don't know how many people actually frequent it during, like a weekly basis or yearly basis, but it's a huge area. And what you find, especially in a lot of urban wilds, is that there is a large accumulation of trash. So we're really trying to show people that this is a pervasive issue within Boston, and it's something that we need to take ownership of and actually get involved with in terms of cleaning up, but then not only changing the culture into not throwing trash and refuge there. And really just trying to get the community to really think more about what does it mean to be a steward of the environment, what does it mean to properly recycle and throw away trash and compost, and how can people get involved in a way that actually makes an impact?
Well, it also occurs to me that when a piece of green space has a lot of trash in it, people don't want to go there. So I guess this you're trying to change that, right?
We're trying to change that narrative. I mean, especially with everything that we do with Greenovate Boston, which is the mayor's initiative to get all residents engaged with climate change and to help us meet our climate action goals of carbon neutrality by 2050. I mean, what Greenovate Boston is really trying to do is to imbue all residents with the mindset that I can do it, that any small action that I take can have a huge impact down the line if I can organize my community and get everyone involved.
Now, one of the things I noticed recently from walking along the Neponset River Greenway in Matapan is that you're not just in nature, you're in the neighborhood, you're with people from the neighborhood, and that changes the self-image of the neighborhood too.
Yeah.
What's the value of that, you think?
I think that the value really is about people really, and like you said, viewing themselves in their neighborhood. I think it's really about making people feel that their neighborhood is theirs and that they can contribute to it and to make it better and to make it something that is accessible to all people. And I think that's really what we're trying to do in the sense of having these types of cleanups to get people to meet each other, to network, to work together, and to really foster relationships that can actually have a greater impact down the line in something completely unrelated or along the lines of environmental stewardship. I mean, that's really what we're trying to do in the sense of creating community that's already there and really allowing people to see the beauty within their own communities.
Of course, another thing that goes on, and this could be, the Allendale Woods as much as anywhere else, even if there isn't much trash, in the wintertime, tree branches fall down, pathways get blocked. So I guess that's another reason you need people to help out here, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think, again, like you said, these areas are for Boston residents. They're for everybody. And when things like that happen, it really makes it inaccessible to a lot of people who, again, when you see, branches on the ground or, trees falling over, a litany of trash, you really see that people kind of waver away from it. But really, we're trying to, also put it upon ourselves to say that we want to make sure that these areas are safe and accessible to everybody. So it's just as much as, we're trying to get the community to buy in, we're also buying in and really doing this in a consistent basis where people can actually feel like, if I want to host an urban wild cleanup, if I want to host a park cleanup, if I want to host a beach cleanup, I know who to reach out to. And the city of Boston has that portal that I can access in order to do that.
This has been the news, and we're talking with David Corbie from Greenovate Boston. David, you know, what you've been talking about is what we've heard from a lot of parks advocates over the years. So what's the importance here in terms of climate change and getting people to organize around that?
Well, our natural spaces are very important to our public health. A lot of people don't realize that when there's large heat waves, we really do rely on trees and plants in order to allow for a cooling effect to basically wave off the heat island effect. So to preserve these areas, and especially to cut down any non-native species, it really does serve the purpose of keeping these communities cool, and especially in the sense of storing water, reducing runoff. It really does go to benefit the community, because this is really what climate change is going to bring. And by preserving these areas and making them more accessible, I mean, that's really a huge step in the sense of making Boston more prepared and more resilient for the coming impacts of climate change.
In invasive species of plant life, we've heard about this with Muddy River, we've heard about it with Franklin Park. They clutter up the park. Why is that such a big problem?
Well, because since they're non-native, it's almost like they're out-competing with the native species that are there. So there are plant species that are meant for Boston, and because of the climate, they're able to thrive and survive. And even with the animal species, they're used to those plant species. But then when you have non-native species that are coming from outside of the country or other states, then it really starts to outcompete with the species that are already there, and it in a way can suffocate the species that are there. I mean, when we've done cleanups before, we've seen long vines that just wrap around a tree and really actually start to bring it down and start to cripple it in the sense. And I mean, I remember one time when we did a cleanup and there was a tree that was basically ensnared by one of these invasive species, and we were able to remove it, and it was kind of like bent over, but then after we finished, it was able to stand up. So it really is about, again, resilience and being able to actually clean up these areas where non-native species really do exist.
Another way you're looking for help is getting more people from the neighborhoods who can explain what you've just explained. So talk about what's going on an ongoing basis around that.
Yeah, so we have our Leaders program, which is something that we offer, and that's really the precipice for how we get people into trying to engage all Boston residents. So we really go by the model of you train the trainer. So when we're doing the trainings, we're training people to actually go out and talk to people about climate change and how it's going to specifically affect Boston and how they can actually take action. And we really do support them in the sense of actually taking actions that are, I guess, pervasive issues or around pervasive issues that are affecting their community. So we host our Leaders program, Community Leaders program, which is for, all general Bostonians. We have our Youth Leaders program, which are geared specifically to high school students, and then we have our Ambassador program, which is for people who are really involved in the climate movement and environmentalism and really just want to have a platform in which to do long-term projects. So we're really trying to get all audiences when we try to engage people in our Leaders program.
Well, if people want some more information about that or the cleanups that are getting started in April, what's the best way for them to get the details?
So they can Google search Greenovate Boston. They can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, or they can go to our personal website, which is greenovateboston.org. Or, of course, and highly recommended, go to boston.gov and find Greenovate Boston there.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
David Corbie from Greenovate Boston.